Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, happy Monday, and we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about Los Angeles politics as the mayor, LA Mayor Karen Bass, was officially sworn in yesterday. We'll talk about a little bit of those activities and festivities. Plus, on the other side of it, how one LA City Councilman got himself in a little scuffle with the protester over the weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Plus, one pastor is saying that the church needs to step up and be a part of the cannabis movement. We're going to check in with Dr. Brittney Williams to discuss the issues and the implications of praising the Lord. Pass me the weed. Here we go. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Also, President Biden has said that he would like African nations to join the G20 summit. We'll check in with Brother Michael in Hotep to get his thoughts about what could be the significance of this, and more importantly, what can certainly be the outcome for the motherland. And then later on, I got some updates. Cherelle Griner gave her updates and thank yous, and I'm going to tell you about what's going on in Brooklyn. So stay with us. A lot to get to on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. You ready to rock? I'm ready to go. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of the conversation. First and foremost, happy Monday. I hope you're enjoying your Monday so far. And it looks like December is kind of rolling through. I'm feeling it. Like, damn, it's almost the end of the year. Man, oh man, I cannot believe 2022 is about to come to an end. But we'll have a conversation about that later. But look, let's start off talking about my city, my new home, Los Angeles, folks. How LA is just going through some changes politically. All right, so on the first side of things, we saw yesterday, it was official, folks, Mayor-elect, former Congresswoman, and now the new mayor of Los Angeles, Ms. Karen Bass, was officially sworn in by Vice President Kamala Harris per Ms. Bass's request to have the vice president to be a part of the ceremonies, as this is an historic occasion for Mayor Bass to be sworn in as the first woman in the office and the first Black woman in the office. Folks all across the city of LA have been expressing their just thank yous and gratitude. And of course, there are some people that are not too happy, but that's the nature of politics. However, let me bring you up to speed on what happened just a little bit yesterday. And over the weekend, I even had an opportunity to go to a homecoming event for Mayor Bass out there in Leimert Park in the historic area of Crenshaw. And I will say, folks, Black folks are really, really excited and happy to have one of their own to become mayor of the city that is struggling financially, socially, and dealing with some other issues. But Mayor Bass says that she is not going to just go in and deal with these challenges alone, that she needs Black Los Angeles to step up. So I want to share with you what was just reported about Sunday's ceremony very quickly. This comes from NPR National Public Radio, where they talked a little bit about this. Take a look at this here, folks, that she was sworn in by Vice President Kamala Harris. Mayor Bass said her first task as mayor will be to declare homelessness a state of emergency in the city. Homelessness has risen in the Los Angeles area since the pandemic. The county released a 2022 report in September after not doing so in 2021. The count reached 69,144 unhoused people across the county. Woo! That's up 4.1%, and 41,980 people in Los Angeles City, up 1.7% since 2020. Now, the population in LA County is about 9.8 million, while the city population is about 3.8 million. According to Mayor Bass, she said, my emergency declaration will recognize the severity of our crisis and break new ground to maximize our ability to urgently move people inside and to do so for good. Now, we're certainly going to have, and take a look at this. This is Mayor Bass being sworn in as LA's mayor. First black woman, first black woman. I mean, she's making all types of history, but she has a Herculean task before her. But one of the things that she said at her homecoming event in Crenshaw was that she was certainly up for the task, that she does not plan to move forward in any other political office. She's already served in Congress. That she's not looking to become governor. She's not even looking to become president. She says, I'm going to be the mayor of the city that I come from. This is my home, and this is where I end my political career. So this is going to be her last hurrah, so to speak. And so I wanted to bring this out to you folks as we talk a little bit about this. And I want to bring in Nira Muhammad, who is an activist. She's an advocate. She's an educator. She's a screenwriter. And also she is the host of Queen Talks with Nira that you can hear on all streaming platforms. Dope podcast, which she talks about a lot of great things. And so happy to have her back on the show with us. Nira, good to hear from you. How you feeling?
I'm good, Farajii. Thanks for having me as always.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about Mayor Karen Bass. We were both at the event on Saturday for her homecoming, and then yesterday she was officially sworn in as the new mayor of the city of Los Angeles. How optimistic, how hopeful are you about Mayor Bass taking on the big challenges the city faces?
I mean, I truly believe that she has a good heart and a good spirit. I could feel that from being at the event. But I'm not very hopeful in any politician at this point, though. So for me, it's more like I'm not gonna walk in trusting you. You're gonna have to earn my trust, and you're gonna have to show up and show and prove. I don't care that you're black. I'm from Baltimore, where we've had more than enough black female mayors who have not helped really push the city forward, and so therefore I don't really care that she's a black woman. I just want to see her do her job.
Absolutely. It's just that simple for you, huh?
It's that simple for me. I don't care anymore. I am so over getting excited about black politicians that come in and just show their ass. And to me, that's worse. That's worse than like a white politician coming in, because it's like you want to feel like their family, that like they understand you, they understand your struggle, they understand what you want for your children, they understand the struggles and the just you would think that they just would come from a different place of empathy because they have the same struggles as you. But once people get to a certain level, sometimes they can't even they can't understand. They what is that word I'm looking for, Farajii? Like I'm having a brain freeze.
What, accountability? A certain level of accountability?
No, it's like they just like they're so far removed.
Oh,
right.
Gotcha.
They're so far removed from the struggle that it's like they can't even empathize with you anymore.
Good point.
You know what I mean? It's like, remember when Lil Wayne had made that comment about like being a black male, like he doesn't feel like he had an issue with cops or race. No, he said something about like I don't see race, or I don't have an issue with race. And it's like until your black ass get locked up, but that's just a whole nother story.
Right. So what is the so no, I understand that sentiment wholeheartedly, and I think that all across this country, that's one of the big challenges for Black America to really rally itself around Black politicians nowadays versus say 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We've heard all of the rhetoric, we've heard all of the talk, this is my person, Of course, being from Baltimore, you and I know we see that there is always that cliquish type of politics that happens, right? And so I'm wondering, and I'm like, I've really got some good vibes I want to put out to Mayor Bass, because she got a very, very tough job in LA.
She does. I'm very excited. I really am. I truly am excited, but I just don't want to get disappointed. And so I'm cautiously excited.
I got you. She said one of her top priorities, she wants to make homelessness. This is something that you and I certainly have talked about. Homelessness, poverty. You have families in the city of Los Angeles that are on the streets, right?
Yeah.
You worked in the school system in Baltimore. You understand that the implications of families coming from, very, very unfortunate backgrounds, children coming from those spaces. From that point of view, how do you deal with the issue of homelessness? How do you make sure that the children that are unhoused are not mentally, socially debilitated by their living situation?
I mean, first of all, let's talk about the housing disparity here in LA. I mean, you can talk about homelessness, but until you deal with the problem, which is the increasingly cost of living, and I'm not talking about gas prices or how much it costs to get a pack of chicken. I'm talking about rent in itself. Until you deal with, I want to hear her say, I'm going to deal with rent disparities. Like, that's what I want to hear, because the rent here is astronomical and it's for no reason. Like, there's literally, you know, a 2-bedroom should not cost $2,600 when it's a basic 2-bedroom. I'm not saying a luxury apartment shouldn't cost $2,600, but I mean like a basic apartment without a washer and dryer, without a dishwasher. It's like, there's still gonna, homelessness is not going to go away if there are not jobs, if there are not opportunities, if there's not a livable wage. So that's the thing, a livable wage. I saw that California just raised the minimum wage by like 25 cents or 50. No, it was 50 cents. But what is 50 cents when everything else is going up?
Yeah, that's
so. How is she going to tackle homelessness? What is she going to do? Is she going to take them off the street and put them somewhere, or is she going to tackle the issue that created the homelessness that they're facing?
So I think it's a couple of different things. I mean, I think part of the reason why she's going to declare homelessness a statewide, a citywide emergency is to get some more additional funds. But I've heard her say in previous discussions, she said, you know, her plan has always been to at least get 17,000, from 15 to 17,000 people off the streets, right? And looking at the situation of rent disparity and I don't know, you know, and I think that that's the only time we'll tell. We'll see how hard she goes against developers and trying to take advantage of it. Even landlords, you know, slumlords or whatever, like how hard she going to bring it.
Unless they do something about the rent disparities, we're always going to deal with homelessness here. Always. Yeah. It's not going to go away. As a full-time teacher, I cannot afford a 2-bedroom apartment in LA by myself. And I have to be certified. I have to have a degree, and I can't afford it. I could, but I'd be skating by.
Yeah.
I would literally be skating by. There's so many people here in LA who literally have a roommate, and they hate having a roommate. I mean, I see people in the groups that I'm a part of complain about their roommates every single day, but they're like, it sucks because I genuinely can't afford to live on my own.
Yeah.
And I went to college. I have a degree. I have a whole career, and I can't afford to live on my own. That's the biggest problem we have in LA. That's
a huge problem. Huge problem. Very quickly before we take our first pause, Ming Lee, Natasha Surge, you checked in and talking about the hopes that Black folks have for other Black folks in leadership and political positions. You said that's because y'all look for Black people to move mountains when they get in office, and that doesn't happen. Well,
no, I don't expect you to move mountains. That's not true. But I do expect you to speak towards my interests. That I do expect. If you get in office and you say that you're going to work on education and funding, and then you get into office and I don't see any change in education and funding, as an educator, someone who's actually in the system, then that's when I have a problem. I don't expect you to get in and be like, oh shit, we got reparations. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a logical woman.
I hear you. Lana checked in. Lana, you said all Black males have tough jobs, so push the government to fix it or get out the way. This is their heart. I rock with Karen. I remember when she held up that iron war, but she changed. And I get it. I get it. You know, and here's the thing, folks, we always talk about this. When you get into political office, the expectations, and to your point, Ming Lee, Natasha Surge, to your point, the expectations have to be realistic and tempered, right? My 60-40 deal. You get 60% of what I like, 40% of what I don't like. But as long as you get some stuff done, right? Let's get some stuff done. Karen, my sister in LA, you checked in. You said, look, I was invited to Mayor Bass's inauguration as an honored guest. The event was wonderful. The entertainment was A-list and over the top. She deserves a chance. I think she would do a good job. Look, let me tell you, I'm going to do my part here in the city of Los Angeles to help Mayor Bass to make things happen. She said it at her homecoming event this past weekend. She said, I need help. She got over 300 openings of people she needs to fill for her administration. She said, but I need help. And I'm like, I'm going to help. I'm not going to sit on the sidelines, even though I'm new to the city and all of this stuff. We know that, Nira, that we're not going to just sit on the sidelines and just be like, complain. I'm going to jump in there, heart first, then the rest of myself, I'm going to help.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely excited that we have a Black woman as a mayor in the city. Again, I'm just not the type of person that's going to look at you and be like, oh, you're Black, that means you're down for me. That's not how I roll. But I am excited about her, and I do look forward to seeing what she does for the city. Absolutely.
All right, folks, when we come forward, we're going to talk about some LA politics on the other side. Even though we got this great moment of congratulations and success, and this is a moment of hope. On Friday night, LA City Councilman Kevin De Leon took things into a different space. I'm going to share with you when we come back from the break what happened as he was approached by a bunch of protesters at a Christmas function for families. We got video to share. Stay with us. It's coming up on The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20036-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, it's now time to turn our attention to another element of LA politics as we talk about just the high hopes of the swearing in of Mayor Karen Bass yesterday. There was a low point in the city council that happened over the weekend just as well. LA City Council Councilman Kevin De Leon, who is one of the three Latino city council people that were involved in a recorded conversation where they had expressed some anti-blackness views and were manipulating or really conspiring to figure out how they're going to continue to hold on to some semblance of power by disparaging Black voters and Black residents of LA. Well, he continues to go down the embattled road, even though the councilman said he would not quit his post as a councilman, as his colleague Nori Martinez has done. And as a result of him staying steadfast, folks in LA are giving him the blues. On Friday night, he went to a Christmas function in Lincoln Heights in East LA, and he was met with a barrage of protesters. Take a look at this, folks. Here's the video that has been circulating all across the country. This is in Keenan area. Let's see if we can pull up this video, because you got to see what happened to this councilman when he went to this situation, and just let me know when that video is going to be available. But essentially, Nira, and I want to bring you back into this. All right, we got the video. Take a look at this, and then Nira, I want to get your take on this. This is Councilman Kevin De Leon leaving an event, a Christmas event in East LA on Friday night, and then he was confronted by some protesters. Take a look.
Kevin, resign, Kevin. Violence you're inflicting on this district.
Kevin, no, you're a racist. No, you're racist.
Whoa, what the fuck? What are you doing?
Look at Kevin. What are you doing, Kevin? Get your fucking hands off of Kevin. Don't fucking touch us, Kevin.
That was a protester by the name of Reedy, who's a part of a couple of social justice organizations in the city of Los Angeles. And now, as you saw, that situation happened on Friday night. Los Angeles Police Department is investigating, and there are conflicting stories as to what led to that fight between Councilman De Leon and that protester. Nira, what's your take on that moment?
First of all, can I just say that I feel like if any politician or anyone comes out and says anything that is considered to be anti-Semitic, they would be removed.
Or anti-Black.
Huh?
I was just saying anti-Semitic or anti-Black. Because he was talking about, he was.
No, that's the point I'm making. When people come out and they are say something that is anti-Semitic, they lose their post. But when people say things that are anti-Black, they have the right to choose whether or not whether or not they step down or stay within their post. And I want to just kind of start there, because for me, that's the problem. And I think that, one, I do feel sorry for the brother, because he kind of like approached this man and things didn't go the way he thought it was going to go. Let's just say that. So that was just unfortunate. It was an unfortunate situation all around. But just the fact that this man or that these people are allowed to keep their post. Kanye West lost everything by making anti-Semitic comments, but you can be caught talking trash about Black people and nothing happens to you. That is the problem with this country.
That is very true. That is very true. And
there's no law for that. So
there's no law for that. I mean, they can't.
Is there a law that says you can't talk about Jewish people?
No, it's an unwritten law.
So there's not a law that you can't talk about Jewish people, but you'll lose everything. Yeah. But you could talk about Black people, and all they can tell us is that there's no law that can remove this man from office. Right. That's bullshit. That is bullshit.
Well, here's I think a couple of things along with that part of the conversation. One is that Black folks don't wield the same level of power and influence that Jewish people wield in certain spaces. So you're not going to get, and I get your point. I think you hit.
These are elected officials. If you are caught talking about Black people, what are you saying to your constituents? How can I live in a place where you're my council person as a Black woman or as a Black man and know that that's how you feel about me and you can keep your job? How can I trust the government? You ask me to trust my politicians. Why should I?
Right.
My politicians can talk shit about me, my line, my people, and nothing.
Right. And that's part of that's part of the culture that we have to address, right? Like you can be anti-Black, but you can't be anti-Jew. You can't be anti-LGBTQ, right?
Nope.
Or certainly you can't
Nope.
be anti-white.
You will lose.
But you can be anti-black.
If those politicians came out and said anything about the Jewish community or the LGBTQIA community, they would have lost their post. You cannot tell me anything differently.
Yeah,
I
understand.
I don't believe anything differently. If they would have been caught talking about Jewish people on camera, they would have all lost their jobs. Every last one of them.
Do you think that in this particular moment, I mean, you got a protester going against, jumping up in the face. I mean, they just clashing. I mean,
we have every right to be angry. We're tired.
Right.
Now it's embarrassing because then he get beat up. That wasn't a good look.
Well, he wasn't. The councilman did not look like he was backing down after a moment. So
that's worse. That is the worst. When you try to be big in bed, you try to be tough Tony, and then you get your. That's embarrassing. That's not good for the culture. Let's just say
that's not good for the culture.
That's not good for the culture.
That's not good for the culture. You're getting handled. And look, and what the video did not show is that actually they went outside and
it was
there was some more scuffling. I know, no doubt. The councilman said that he got the protester hit him in the face one time, but then he missed the second swing and
it's not funny. I should not be laughing. God, please forgive me.
I'm just saying, like, this is crazy. This is crazy. We're living at a situation, right? And it's like part of, the cultural side of things is like, damn, like this is, to your point, you could talk bad about Black people and not lose anything. But then we're also looking at a situation where there's a real breakdown within the political space where Black folks got to resort to violence against their against representatives in government. And that's the scary part. Like, you got to run up on somebody and be all up in their face and the whole nine. And that's
I just feel so bad for us. Like, it's just like someone who loves history, and you just think about all the things that we as Black people have gone through and that we're still going through. It's just not fair, man.
No, not at
I
all.
feel like, and I know when people are like, oh, that doesn't give Black people the right to act a fool and embarrass themselves. But can we talk about trauma for a minute?
Go ahead.
Can we talk about how trauma spills over and how sometimes your body doesn't know how to react to trauma but to be aggressive? It's like you're so angry because you're so tired and you're so fed up and you've been patient for so long, and we've been told to march and we've been told to protest and vote and walk the walk and just hold your head up and just, you're almost there. You're going to get to the promised land and we're not there.
Right.
We're tired of being told that we're going to get to the promised land.
Right.
We're tired of being told that we're going to get reparations. We've been begging just to get $20,000 to cover our student loan debt.
Yeah,
and even that's been put on hold for some BS. Hey. We're tired in this country.
Hey, Mira, I'm like your favorite artist right now, Summer Walker. I'm over it.
I am. Like, she's not a favorite artist. Don't do scissor like that. First of all, don't do scissor like that.
I said Summer Walker.
I said exactly, and you know she my favorite. Scissor is. So don't disrespect Scissor like that. Summer was my stand-in while I was waiting for Scissor to make an album.
Okay.
And she's back now. So
she's back now. Hey, look, let's get some comments from our online culture crew. McCole, you checked in and you said the protester got in the councilman's face. He messed around and found out.
Yep, he did.
There's
You're right.
Yo, wow. There's a way to protest what the councilman said without body contact. I'm just saying. There's a huge way. There's a huge
Especially
way.
If you're gonna get your
and don't underestimate the person whose face you in.
And you gotta know you gotta choose your battles.
Hey man, don't everybody ain't weak.
You gotta choose.
You don't think, because you might get yourself handled. Hey Damon, don't think I missed that comment, Damon. You said it yourself, Damon. You said that man got handled with the 3 laughing face emojis. Black folks, y'all sad. Y'all just that's how we do in the culture.
First of all, when you showed me the video originally,
it's unfortunate.
I was like, am I supposed to laugh? Are you laughing?
I'm not laughing. It's just unfortunate that you get handled. Let me go to Willie Frazier. Willie, my guy, you say it looks like a lawsuit was the aim. I mean, yeah, it looks like that. It looks like that. If you were trying, and look, let me tell y'all, folks, and Nira knows it. Like, there are in meetings, when you have organizing meetings where, you're going to do a mass protest or something like that, and you're going to confront the people that are the target of your protest. There are meetings that I've been a part of that say, get in your face. You know, these are the tactics that protesters are oftentimes told to do to elicit a certain type of response. So I wouldn't be surprised, Willie, if a lawsuit is there, because I've heard it myself when people say,
who's filing the lawsuit in this situation?
The lawsuit could be filed by the protester. The lawsuit could be filed by the protester. That's why he had his hands up. He was in his face. But, you know, come on, people. Y'all know this is the culture. We're going to keep it 1,000. Look, if somebody's in your face, inches away from your nose, spitting and yelling and screaming, and they may have their hands up, you still in my personal space. I'm going to handle you. Let me just tell y'all, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't roll with Kevin DeLeon, but I understand the sentiment. I understand.
Let's just say
get the hell out of my damn face.
Like a person spits in your face.
Yeah. Oh no.
That kind of accelerates the altercation.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? Like that accelerates it.
You're not gonna do that. You're not gonna stand in my face, yell and scream, spitting, COVID time, all this stuff. You are, and you got your hands up. No, sir. I'm about to handle you, bro. I'm about to handle you like a piece of meat, son. About to tenderize that ass. Let me tell you.
I don't condone violence. I am Dr.
I don't condone violence either, but I
am a child of Dr. King.
I don't like to be violent, but I damn sure am an advocate for self-defense.
I am an advocate for self-defense.
You know what I'm saying?
But
the cross.
Farajii, can you call it self-defense if a person did not actually physically touch you? No.
Yes, because when you invading your space, no, we all have personal space.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's gonna fly. I think that they would.
It may not fly. Let me tell you something. It don't have to fly in a court of law. You come into my space, I have every right to defend you. I have every right to defend you. Defend myself. Sorry.
But is it a defense if they didn't touch you? They're just taunting you at that point.
Hey, Keenan, show the video again.
He maybe did him.
According to the councilman, this man headbutted him. This is what the councilman said.
Let's see. I gotta look at it again. Hold up. It's a lot going on. I mean, he was up on him.
I mean, look at him. He's in. Look, there you go. He's in. He's close enough.
Yeah. I mean, damn.
Look, I get it. Trust and believe. I'm not saying, and this is not to go into that space of the conversation. I'm just keeping it real, y'all. If you want to make your point known, if you want to protest, there's a way to do that. There's a way to get a person's attention. But the moment that you invade somebody's personal space, getting that close, be prepared if they don't knock you in the mouth. Be prepared, and it might take you around to put their hands on you. Be prepared.
I don't know. I guess, honestly, I feel a little bit differently because I'm an educator, and there will be times that students are going to try you. They're going to get in your face.
Your opinion.
I'm 4'11", for those of you that are watching. I'm a very small woman. I've taught third graders who are much bigger than me, to be honest. So if a third grader gets in my face, I can under no circumstances hit them.
That's a child still.
No.
But check this out.
I'm just saying when you're
here we go. Though.
The point of what I'm saying is that I'm looking at it from the perspective of being a public servant. And from that perspective, I'm just like, would I... Now, I'm saying if the man punched him, that would be different. But I don't think I would have, hit him in that moment just because...
He didn't hit him. He just
kind of, jacked him up.
He jacked him up and held him down.
I don't really see a need for a lawsuit from either side. I feel like this is more of a situation where they need to just... I'm hoping that the councilman will rethink his position. I'm hoping that the city will rethink his position. But, I mean, this is a sign that we're upset and we're tired.
There it is. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. Let's talk about some other stuff. I'll get outside of LA politics because it's up and down in this city right now. But it's all good because now we want to talk about, when we come back from the break, let's talk about what one pastor says about what the church can do to get more members and to evolve with the times. We're going to be checking in with our quote-unquote cannabis doctor, Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, to give us some insight about what Pastor Bryant has suggested that his church wants to get into as it relates to praising the Lord and passing the weed. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
Hey folks, welcome back to the show. Let's talk about cannabis right now and the church. Yes, out of all places, these are the two parts of a major conversation that's happening in both faith circles and in the Black community. As Pastor Jamal Bryant, who serves as the pastor of the great church that Reverend Eddie Long down in Atlanta did, that served before his passing. But Pastor Jamal Bryant is once again back in the headlines. My brother, man, oh man, he has brought up an idea of, as he serves as the pastor of New Birth Ministries, he's brought up this idea that the church needs to be a part of the cannabis movement. That's all I'm going to say. I want you to hear for himself what the pastor say about the church and cannabis. Check this out.
Looking for people that smell like weeds. No, really, is... New Birth is the largest land-owning Black church in America. Wow. And so my position to my deacons is, why aren't we not raising cannabis? I'll be able to bring in Black males. They're able to do it legally. I'm teaching them farming.
Oh my God.
I'm helping them to enhance the ecosystem. This is the kind of conversation. So if the guy, Black boy in Bankhead said, they growing weed at the church, where do I join?
Yes.
I don't need no pamphlet for him.
I got 5 on it. I like how they edit that clip. Let's bring in my culture crew members today. We've been chatting with Nira Muhammad, host of Queen Talks with Nira podcast. Also, we got B Fly joining us as well, who is a filmmaker and an artist. Look at her. Look like she just stepped out of Black Hollywood. There we go.
You're crazy. Let me adjust my shit.
And we got our cannabis doctor. She is the author of the book. Courage in Cannabis, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams, who is here to talk to us. I got 3 dynamic ladies on the panel to talk about this. Black women, talk about the controversial view that Pastor Jamal Bryant had put forth that has gotten everybody talking. First and foremost, Dr. Bridget, you are actually, I got to remind folks, you're just not some quack. You are a board-certified family physician.
Yes.
You have been practicing medicine for a long time. You have been doing a lot of research on the benefits of cannabis, and you have also, I've seen you have put together some videos to talk about CBD for children. I mean, you've been really studying this, and of course, you've been put out this book, Courage in Cannabis. We talk about the inspiring stories, but this idea of the church and cannabis, first and foremost, is this new? Is this something new? And based on all of your research and understanding of how the cannabis movement continues to grow in this country, is this a new idea? And should this be something that we should really consider?
Well, it's definitely controversial, to say the least. You know, when I saw this clip that popped up, I think, like most people, a little taken aback, a little concerned, and the first thought is that it doesn't fit into what churches should be doing. However, I think it's much different from that. I think if we take a closer look, what Dr. Bryant is suggesting is honestly not that far off beat, and actually could be the window to generational wealth for Black people, and can actually allow us to take our wellness into our own hands.
So it's controversial, but it still should be considered.
Very much so. I mean, we live in a culture where other ethnic groups come together and they build wealth, right? So Asians do it, Jews have done it, Italians have done it. Consider this. This is our casinos if we do this well. This is our opportunity. You know, Native Americans were given basically their reparation was land, and they built casinos on that land and were able to build a massive amount of wealth for themselves by working together. And there's really no other organization in the Black community that can really bring us together the way the Black church can. And with financial literacy, with working together, with approaching this in the correct way, this can be our casinos and this can be our generational wealth.
Now, I just want to make it clear, folks, that we have reached out to Pastor Bryant, and you know, we're working on getting the good pastor to come on to the show to talk about these views a little bit more. So we just wanted to have a starting conversation, and I wanted to have it with my sister, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams, because I wanted to get past the emotionalism of this, Dr. Bridget, and get to the heart of the matter, which is you're saying that this could be a vehicle for economic vehicle. You're also saying that this could be a cultural shift, right?
Yes.
Because it's the church. We have a lot of views on a lot of different things, but when it comes to the institution of church, then those views, I would even go as far as to say, Dr. Bridget, they're very conservative. They're not very liberal. And I'm talking about among Black folks. Would you agree or disagree with me on that?
Absolutely. You know, the talks that I've done when I've been allowed to go into churches and talk about CBD and talk about cannabis. It's a rough room. It's a rough room, right? But so many of us live in pain because we don't want to take narcotics, because we're afraid of addiction. And there is medical possibilities that we can get involved in here. Keep in mind the cannabis sales that are predicted for 2023 are $30 billion. We own, as Black people, maybe 2% in the industry. This is an opportunity. At first, just like everybody else, I was taken aback and questioned and wondered who would think about growing cannabis. And keep in mind, whether it's cannabis, whether it's hemp, you know, there's a number of different ways to approach this. Yeah. But this is an opportunity. And the churches, to be honest, yes, churches are conservative. Black churches can be incredibly conservative, but we all need to grow and grow up. And there is no other more powerful vehicle for us as people to bring us together than the Black church.
Let me ask you this from an economics point of view. If the church gets into a space where it's looking at doing something for economic benefit and gain, and we already know that folks already have some negative views about the pastor who drives the Bentley, the pastor who goes on lavish trips, the pastor, you know, we've talked about this pastor out of New York. You know, you don't have to talk about Creflo Dollar. You could talk about some of these Black pastors. How does those two situations reconcile with one another? Folks already saying, "Oh, the pastor getting money off the people. The congregation is poor, but he's not or she's not." And now we're going to bring in an entity that's a part of a $30 billion money making machine. How do you reconcile that?
Well, checks and balances are going to be needed, clearly, right? And there are groups and institutions that talk about financial literacy for the Black church. the National Black Church Initiative is about bringing financial literacy into the church for the people. But this idea of, the pastor with the Bentley and growing so much personally, this will be the opportunity for pastors to literally spread the wealth. And so I agree, there's some bad ideas and stigma around sometimes the Black pastors and, across the country. This is the opportunity to correct that and to spread that. And like I said, not just for that congregation, not just for those people, but to allow it to grow within the people that participate in that program. And there's no reason why we cannot be a bigger part of this $30 billion industry.
Do you
There's
think
no reason why we are living in pain and allowing our elders to live this way?
Should pastors use the scriptures to justify this, or should this be kept as separate, saying, look, this is a church idea, this is not an ordained idea? Because how do you present that to your congregation? You say, oh, go to this particular scripture, and he says, use this from the land. Because I can hear some pastors saying it, Dr. Bridget. I can hear some pastors trying to look for scripture to justify this. But I mean, if you're going to just have a cannabis situation, let it be just the business of a church rather than trying to make it seem like God had ordained us for all of us to smoke and get high. You know what I'm saying?
Like, it doesn't have to be about the smoking and getting high. It can be about correcting the wrongs that have been done to us as a people. And so do I think that there should be some separation between the church pew and the the drying and growing of flower? Probably, but there is quite a bit of scripture that does refer to cannabis, and it's in no means in a negative light. So if that supports it, fair enough. But this is an opportunity for the power of the church to really come into play. And churches have been involved in healthcare since forever, and they've gained quite a bit of money from it. This is an opportunity to spread that wealth.
Absolutely. And then we know also, because of just even with the recent pandemic, there was a whole conversation about churches and the vaccination. Should members of churches get vaccinated? So this is another layer to the conversation. All right, let me bring back Culture Crew member Nira Muhammad, B Fly. Nira, I'm gonna start with you on this one because I know where you stand. And you know Pastor Bryant. Nira, you know Pastor Bryant. So we also know the vein in which the pastor is kind of working from on this piece. Again, we're hoping to bring the pastor on, so I'm gonna get that worked out. But B, what's your take on this, Nira?
Farajii, cannabis has been unsickling my cells since literally 1996. Okay. And so medically, I have gone through so much. Legally, I have gone through so much, and am here, still holding firm to my knowledge and waiting for the rest of the world to catch up to the wisdom. At the end of the day, the doctor is right. We do not have to live in pain. And so Black people have this idea about Black pain, that we are supposed to be married to it. And so Jamal Bryant is a part of the, what will we say? We've always called him a part of the prosperity preachers, okay? So we have certain preachers, we have certain congregations that want you to be prosperous. And then we do have some congregations that want you to stay in Black pain. All right. So it's like, so you really have to determine, who are you? Do you actually want to live pain-free in other ways that have nothing to do with the pharmaceutical industry, or do you want to continue to live in a very Black taxed way, and so it's like, so this is the time to make those decisions, but we also have to keep our dope boy in mind, because we have been literally crucifying the dope boy. Absolutely. As long as the dope boy has existed, as long as the dope boy has been literally creating its own, his own, her own pipeline to economic freedom.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right? So now that we've collected all of this data, we're running into this commercial process with it, but we're still criminalizing. Like the state of California still has yet to release my 2 strikes. I have 2 federal strikes from the state of California that has still yet to be released. I was expounded from the state for 10 years, my home state. Understand what we have gone through in the name of cannabis.
Yeah,
you know? And so it's like,
I want to get Nira's take on this before we take our next pause. Nira, what's your take on this? Because this is really the intersectionality of 2 very highly sensitive conversations within Black America. We haven't fully embraced the cannabis culture in Black America. Yeah. And we know that church culture is.
I'm 33 years old, and I'm still like afraid of like smoking around your dad. Like that's how ingrained like the fear of like cannabis is. Like I still like, and it's something that I love, and I still feel like a stigma being a Black woman who smokes cannabis. So that's on one end. Then on the other end, I have a father who overdosed and died off of morphine, prescription pills. So when you have a parent that died from prescription pills, you have a different view of the pharmaceutical industry and of medicine. So for one, I'm always going to be team pro cannabis, whether it's in CBD form, whether it's in gummy form, whether it's in a topical form, whatever it is, whether you need it for sleep, whatever. There are a lot of different things that it can be used for. I know for me, it was for anxiety and for the fact that I have celiac disease, and it really helps my appetite with my weight and so many other, it helps. That's that. Yeah. I know Jamal. So, you know, this isn't far-fetched for me getting this from Jamal. That's one. I do, I appreciate what he's trying to do in terms of bringing in Black boys, Black men in the congregation in terms of helping with the economic wealth. I am hoping that this isn't a situation where you see Jamal and all the other pastors all of a sudden fattening their pockets and you don't see that wealth trickle down to the people. Do I agree that this is going to bring men into want to be Christian? No. But do I agree that it's going to at least bring them to the table and have more conversations? Yes, I do believe that. So I don't know. I don't really know what Jamal is trying to do in terms of like him saying it's going to bring people to the church. I don't really agree with that. I don't think that's going to make people want to be Christian because again, you still have all these contradictions and hypocrisies within the church. So I don't think this is not going to be a magical cure for like getting millennials to come to church, because millennials, we are the generation that's like, nah, church isn't what it used to be or what you said it was. And we are pulling away from church and organized religion. And I don't think that this is going to make people want to go to the church because we've already been smoking weed. We've already been, you know, but I do think it'll be a good avenue if it is something that allows them to get into the business of marijuana. Okay?
Absolutely. We got to take a quick pause, Doc. When we come back, I want to, take some of the comments from our online culture crew, continue to take your analysis and B's and Nira's analysis as we talk about this. The church and cannabis, Reverend Jamal Bryant of New Birth Ministries has put forth an idea to Black Americans saying that the church should be involved in the growing cannabis movement. What do you think? Post your comments in our chat as we're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Black Star Network, and we'll continue to have the conversation on the other side. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, we've been having a conversation about the church and cannabis as Reverend Jamal Bryant of New Birth Ministries, a church in Atlanta, Georgia. He has put forth a proposal to Black folks and to the rest of America, making the point saying that the church should be involved in the cannabis movement. Why not? He said growing weed may help bring Black men to church. So if that's how you get Black men to church, then why not have cannabis being sold by the church? We've been checking in with a family physician and author of the book Courage in Cannabis, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams. We also been checking in with two dynamic Black women who are advocates of the conversations. Nira Muhammad, who is the host of Queen Talks with Nira podcast, and B Fly, who serves as a filmmaker, and she is co-founder of Black Waterhouse Productions. Sisters, I want to get some comments from our online culture crew as we have this conversation, which is very, very interesting. And I've looked in at our chats on our YouTube stream as we're streaming right now. It don't seem like too many people, Dr. Bridget, are really opposed to this idea. They're like, I'll get high and listen to God at the same time, Yeah, your eyes are rolling.
I'm sorry, Farajii, I don't get how this is going to bring Black men to church, though. Like,
no,
it's not going to bring Black men to church. Like, that's not going to happen, Jamal. Like, you're using that as an excuse to make money, and I don't. Now where I'm kind of like running into an issue with this. Like, I want him to do it for the sake of Black people should be a part of the cannabis industry. Personally, I want to know how I can get involved in dispensaries and in investing in the cannabis industry. I would love that. I just want to just be real and just say that shit. Like, just say that it's about economics. Like, don't say this is about bringing Black men to church, because what does the cannabis thing have to do with them getting up on a Sunday morning and coming to your service? Those don't correlate for me personally.
I guess that and Nira, I guess is like, once you get there, then you get into the space, you get into the parking lot, you get to where the plant is being sold. B, you saying no, Dr. Bridget, you saying no. Look, I'm just trying to think it out. Nira brings up the logistics. I'm just trying to think out the details.
I'm going to ask him, bring it up.
I think a big part of this, though, like the church has been involved with politics forever, and that has nothing to do with salvation, right? And I think we may be putting more on Pastor Bryant than he actually meant. But if this is about economic growth, I think that this is a conversation worth having. If this is about trying to dingle a carrot in front of people's faces so they pay more and give tithe more, then I think we might be missing something here. But I think the most important part, and I think this is what we're all coming together on, is that education around cannabis and hemp and health is absolutely crucial here, because the stigma and reefer madness is alive and well. We need to change how we think about cannabis. We need to change our perception and the stigma so that we can see it in a different light that allows us to grow instead of being traumatized by the war on drugs that we've experienced from the 70s and 80s.
And I'm so happy you brought that up, Dr. Bridget, because my other thing, and I'm going to get to a couple of comments, but one of the things that kept coming out of my mind, especially as I was listening to you, B Fly, and Nira, is the government still regulates this, right? So how do we trust the government to kind of give us the quote unquote the purest form of this, so we can get the benefits that you often talk about in a way where it like just like what we've seen maybe with other medicines, we don't become so addicted that we lose function or we lose something. You know what I mean, Doc? And I hope I'm trying to phrase this question the best way. There's a trust factor that I think that we need to discuss, because we're Black folks ain't bringing in the cannabis.
Mm-hmm. But I will say that, from my teachings, and I was just in Atlanta in October with the Cannabis Literacy Club, which are Morehouse graduates that put together a educational forum so that we can be educated and know cannabis well. So there are opportunities for us to grow here. And I don't know if we should always trust the government when it comes to this. We know the problems that the government does or brings to Black people when we allow them to be in control of our wellness and our health and every other aspect of our life. So the idea of us being in control of our own finances, of our own wellness, from my teaching from when I was down in Atlanta, you get some of these young men and women that are excited about something that they understand and love and are learning about. Yeah. We can grow this. We can process this. We can fight it we can be our own industry if we put it back in our own hands. Africans have been involved with cannabis since the 1500s, if not before. Let's straighten out this whole perception. Let's educate our community well, and let's change how we go forward and allow cannabis to be that vehicle.
I want to bring in another voice in this, because my brother, he's chomping at the bit. He's like, look, man, I need to be a part of this. This is my brother Michael in Hotep, who is a scholar. He serves as the host for the African History Network. You can find him on his podcast. Brother Michael, let's bring him in real quick. Brother Michael, thank you so much for joining us. I know you were going to talk about this other thing, Brother Michael, but I know you were like, wait a minute, bro. Hey, Farajii, bring me in. Put me in, coach.
Well, absolutely. How's everybody doing? Hotep to everybody. Good. And peace to the family. So when the doctor mentioned reefer madness, has anybody mentioned, so I just came in right about 4:00. Has anybody mentioned Harry J. Anslinger?
Not yet.
Okay, so you have to, whenever we have this conversation dealing with cannabis, or what used to be called hemp, when white people were growing it and trading it and it was a crop, we have to go back to the history of why it was made illegal. Because as long as white people were using cannabis or hemp and they were using it for medicinal purposes, it was no problem. The problem came with Filipinos. The problem came when Mexicans. The problem came when African Americans started using it. Now it became a problem. It became illegal basically in 1937 because of the marijuana prohibition tax. And that's largely because of a man named Harry J. Anslinger, who was a virulent racist. And he was the first chairman of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. And he waged a war against cannabis being legalized. And this was at a time when this was during the Great Depression, number one. Number two, this is after whiskey, after alcohol becomes, prohibition, during prohibition, right? So they're looking for another target, and they're looking for another target to keep the funding going, to keep their department intact as well, to keep the department funded. So he goes after marijuana. Now, he consulted with about 30 doctors, and he put forth the notion that marijuana affects people mentally, and he put forth the notion of harmful effects of marijuana. He consulted with about 30 doctors. 29 of them disagreed with him. One agreed with him. He went with the opinion of the one doctor. He testified in front of Congress in 1937. And he said that white women crave black men sexually when white women are high on marijuana. Don't take my word for it. Go read the article from theatlantic.com called How Neuroscience Reinforces Racist Drug Policy. How Neuroscience Reinforces Racist Drug Policy from June 12, 2014. And it goes through and it deals with his congressional testimony. Okay. And he said that sensationalism like this was specifically aimed at a white readership, because he was writing articles in newspapers and magazines. You had the movie Reefer Madness. So there was a whole propaganda campaign to scare white people especially when you have these non-white people using these drugs. Sensationalism like this was specifically aimed at a white readership that might worry about such an unfathomably dangerous ethnic drug getting into the hands of his children. Harry J. Anslinger's congressional testimony directly betrayed his racist motivations to enact federal legislation against marijuana. Quote, he said, there are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the U.S. and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. He said their satanic music, jazz, and swing music result from marijuana usage. He said this marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, entertainers, and any others, end quote. He said this in his congressional testimony. Now, this is why marijuana became illegal. It had nothing to do with causing brain damage or anything like that. As long as white people were using it, it was fine. So I'm all for marijuana being decriminalized. Now, I'm not for recreational usage of marijuana. Because what we have to be careful of is that if you already have a liquor store on every other corner in the African American community to keep us drunk, and you have a fast food restaurant across the street from the liquor store to keep us obese, then if you put marijuana dispensaries on every other corner or in close proximity to the alcohol and the fast food restaurant, then is it there to keep us high as well? And the way you suppress the people is you over-medicate them. You keep them drunk. You keep them high. You keep them obese to fight back, to keep them from fighting back against white supremacy and racism. So yes, it should be decriminalized. Yes, there are legitimate medicinal purposes for cannabis. Usually you don't smoke it. Usually you put it in food because when you smoke it, it reduces the THC level. So I'm for medicinal marijuana. I'm for it being decriminalized. But we have to be clear with our people that there's a reason why marijuana usage was put into hip hop music over 30 years ago when it was illegal.
I gotta say, I agree with a lot of what you said, but I disagree with the whole not making it a recreational thing. I am a curriculum writer. I am an educator. I am a screenwriter. I was able to write 10 episodes of my script. And guess what? Sometimes I like to do it when smoking my marijuana. And my brilliance has not been dimmed, not one bit. I train other educators. I teach coding. I teach beautiful children how to build video games. And so I just disagree with that. I also live in LA where I drive and I teach in Beverly Hills and I see dispensaries in very, very expensive white neighborhoods. And so when you see that and you see them have the access to those dispensaries, and let's just be clear, dispensaries do not only have smokable weed. Again, they have the topical, they have the gummies, they have the drinks, they have just for sleep, they have it just for anxiety. You don't have to be, but then also, personally, I also have a brother who's an alcoholic. And I would have much rather seen my brother smoke weed than the effects that alcohol had on him as a young man, and just seeing the health issues that he has now at the age of 34 from alcohol usage. So for me, if whatever his issues are, or from his anxiety and all these other issues that led him to alcohol, I wish that would have led him to marijuana instead of alcohol, because that was way more detrimental to him as a child. Literally, as someone who I remember getting drunk at in 7th grade, to him being a grown man now who can finally admit that he has an alcohol problem. So I just disagree. Again, that's a stigma
I think
that we're fighting.
What I said, sister.
When
I'm not
we hear so
saying
many
that
people say, weed shouldn't be recreational. That's the stigma right there that I personally have been fighting against, because I feel ashamed of smoking because of perspectives such as yours.
You misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying
I'm just saying that's just my perspective of,
I'm not saying recreational marijuana should not be legal. I'm saying we have to be careful about using marijuana for recreational purposes. Marijuana, whether it's medicinal or recreational, should have never been made illegal in the first place. Prior to 1937, all of that was legal. I'm not saying recreational marijuana should not be legal. I'm saying we have to be careful about using marijuana recreationally. It has a medicinal purpose. I don't use alcohol.
I like to use it recreationally, and I personally don't think there's anything wrong with anyone wanting to use it recreationally. Okay. Now, I'm not saying if it's something that's creating a situation where you're not getting up and going to work, or if it's, that's not what I'm saying. But I also am someone who can use it recreationally and still be a brilliant, successful young woman. That's the point that I'm making. So I don't
you're one of the lucky ones.
I don't correlate a dispensary in the community that I correlate the same way that I correlate a liquor store. That's just simply what I'm saying. But I respect your point of view.
Okay. Go ahead, Brother Michael. I'm gonna let you finish, and then I want to get from Dr. Bridget and B.
So it still comes down to education at the end of the day, that, you know, these very emotional and strong opinions that we have are really based a lot on the viewpoints and stigmas that have come about. I would like to think that we've learned a lot from when we've allowed other people to control what goes into our neighborhoods. This is the opportunity for us to control what goes on in our neighborhoods, to educate ourselves about how to use it, to consider tolerance breaks, to consider what level of THC do we actually want to create and disperse in amongst our people. We have an opportunity to see this in a different light, to allow it to not lead to misuse. And keep in mind, there are vices everywhere in every aspect of society and culture and socioeconomics. We always have to be careful with those vices. And the best thing that we can do is educate them appropriately. But if this can also lead to financial opportunities, and get us out of being only 4% of wealth in this country when we are 13% of the population. You know, like I said, I don't know if this is what Dr. Bryant had in mind, but this is the opportunity that lands before us, whether it's him or anybody else. And so, yes, we do need to be careful with it, but this is an opportunity that that we can take advantage of, that we can educate our people about, that we can use it in a medicinal manner, and to make sure that we don't misuse it. Because again, the other vices that are available to us readily do much, much more harm than cannabis ever will.
Corinna checked in.
I agree.
Corinna checked in, one of our online culture crew members. Corinna, you said, I think Michael is concerned about how white supremacists will leverage recreational use of marijuana to the Black community's disadvantage. I hear Nira, but I think she speaks to the exception. All right, Corinna, I appreciate you for saying that. B-Fly, I want to get your take on this as we're looking at this, because now we got two sides. These sides are being presented. But what's your take?
You know, I think every day somebody comes out of the closet and says at work, says at church, yes, I partake in cannabis. And the more people who come out of these closets of their own stigmas, we're really able to see a real population of people who are existing and thriving in their life and within the state of the economy as well, you know? So it's like, this is an opportunity for us to learn more and to figure out other ways that we can invest in the cannabis industry. If there is anyone who is really dealing with like long-term chronic pain and has not sought out alternative cannabis medicines, then definitely understand that they are around and plentiful and may help you, you know? And so that's just real. You know, we just need more awareness. More women need to be able to stand up and say, yes, this is my lifestyle. More men need to be able to stand up and say, yes, this is my lifestyle. And so the new data, the real data can come in, because, you know, like when you start lying, it skews the real stats. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you know, we need more. I was a cannabis mom. I'm a cannabis mom, you know? And so it's like, this is important for us to be able to come out of these closets and to show the world how we live, you know, and thrive with cannabis, you know, whether it's flower or tea, topical.
And Dr. Bridget and Michael, Nira, and B, we got a couple of moments. We got about 30 seconds left, but I'm wondering, you know, we are having this conversation, but how do we have, and Doc, I want to hear from you, Brother Michael, I want to hear from you. How do we have a conversation that within our communities, right? Like, you know, you said, for example, Dr. Bridget, you go into the churches when they allow you to come in. But how do we have these conversations, right, in a very real way? Because now that Pastor Bryant has put forth this idea, I think it's important for us to this opens up the door, which is why we wanted to have the conversation today. This opens up the door for stigmas to be removed, for education to be learned. So how do we have those conversations without people losing their minds and getting highly emotional and not listening?
So there might be emotion behind it, and there's nothing wrong with that, number one.
That's true.
Regarding the message that came through, about 9 to 13% of people develop cannabis use disorder. It's about the same level of people that develop caffeine addiction. And so it's about education and making sure that people understand that that continuous use does not mean good use. But there needs to always be a balance. So, and that's part of having the medical aspect in there. As far as how can we get this message across and allow people to have open conversations, this is an opportunity, right? Having those church talks is an opportunity. The Cannabis Literacy Club in Atlanta does incredible work to get that message out there as well. The book that we have has been in the hands of churchgoers that then come back to me and say, hey, I didn't know it could really help people with autism and cancer, as well as pain and anxiety and other disorders. So it's about not being afraid to share your story or your experience with people that you might think might be against you, and actually you could be freeing them from the pain and the situations that they're in.
Brother Michael, what does that look like for you, brother? You know, how do we have
first we have to start with the history. First, we have to deal with the history. In 1619, the Virginia Assembly passed legislation requiring every farmer to grow hemp. Okay, hemp at one point also was used as a medium of exchange. Hemp was allowed to be exchanged as legal tender in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Maryland, in these colonies. It was not a problem when white people were using it. Okay, then you go to the early 1900s when you have Mexicans coming to this country. The term marijuana is a Spanish term that was changed. They changed it from cannabis to marijuana to associate it with the negative connotations and the negative feelings that white people in this country had towards Mexicans. That's how you got the term marijuana. And it was Mexicans who introduced into this country basically the usage of the recreational usage of the marijuana leaf. So we have to go back to why this became illegal. Same reason why cocaine became illegal. February 8th, 1914, New York Times had a major article called Negro Cocaine Fiends Are a New Southern Menace, Murder and Insanity Increasing Among Lower Class Blacks because they have taken to sniffing since deprived of whiskey by prohibition. As long as white people were using cocaine, it wasn't a problem. In this article and around that time, they're asking questions. They feared that black men will rape white women when they were high on cocaine, and they said cocaine gave black men superhuman strength. So they were asking the question: do police officers now have to carry a 45 caliber handgun because a 38 is not powerful enough to kill a Negro high on cocaine? So anytime we have these conversations, we have to deal with the history of how we got to where we are to better understand this and to understand where we need to go from here.
There it is. Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, I truly, truly appreciate you as always, sis, for being a part of the conversation. And I know that, like I said, we reached out to Pastor Bryant. We're going to do our best to bring him to the table, but I certainly would love to get some more. I'm going to pick his brain, then I'm going to come back to you. But I thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you, Doc. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue to have our chat with Brother Michael and Hotep. We thank Nir Muhammad, who has been on the show, and we'll continue our conversation with B Fly as well. But let's talk about President Biden wanting to bring African nations into the G20 summit and the implications of that. Also, I'm going to share with you what Cherelle Griner, the wife of Brittney Griner, had to say to support us. Stay with us. Those big conversations are coming up right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. All right, let's move from the cannabis conversation, because that's an ongoing discussion, to talking about a little bit more about politics as President Biden has decided to make a big announcement as it concerns Black countries in the continent of Africa. Take a look at this, folks. The president is planning to announce this week a U.S. Africa summit that has his administration supporting adding the African Union as a permanent member of the group of 20 nations, G20, according to the White House. The African Union represents the continent's 54 countries. The G20 is composed of the world's major industrial and emerging economies and represents more than 80% of the world's gross domestic product. Now, South Africa is currently the only African member of the G20. Now, according to the president, this is what he put out. He said, it's past time Africa has permanent seats at the table in international organization initiatives. I'm sorry, this is coming from the senior director for African affairs on the National Security Council, Judd Devermont. He said in a statement Friday, he said, we need more African voices in international conversations that concern the global economy, democracy and governance, climate change, health, and security. Now, President Biden has invited 49 African leaders to take part in the 3-day Washington summit that starts Tuesday. I want to bring my brother back, Brother Michael and Hotep. I've got B-Flower, so I want to bring them both back into this conversation. Brother Michael, the fact that the president wants to bring African countries into the table, is this a sign that is this a good sign, or what are we seeing here, Brother Michael?
Well, you know, I first saw the story from the Washington Post because from researching this topic, the Washington Post was the first one to report on this back on December 9th. And I saw the article from the Washington Post, and the idea, the feeling that I got from this was confirmed by one of my teachers, Professor James Small, because I just talked to him and consulted with him before I came on the show. And he said this would not be a good move for the African Union, which is made up of the 54 African countries. On the surface, it may sound good, but it's basically bringing them to the table so they can be fleeced more by European nations. That's basically what it is. And also the U.S., Biden in the U.S., they want to outflank China and Russia. And we know that a lot of the African nations have taken a neutral position on the Russian invasion of Ukraine as well. So all things considered, this would it looks good on the surface, but all things considered, it probably would not be beneficial, especially in the long term for the African Union.
Wow. B, what's your take on this? Bringing African leaders to the table of international affairs.
You know, my skepticism is high today. Okay. I'm not really feeling the most optimistic. It's like generally speaking. Okay. So this really don't feel right. You know, like I would love to romanticize the idea. Like my romantic narrative would go something like, oh, word, that would be dope. Maybe there would be like less famine, right? That's like my romantic narrative. But when I think about what happens when we have historically integrated, shit has not gone to like our true favor. So let's keep the vibranium to ourselves.
Keep the vibranium to ourselves. Okay.
Yeah, let's be real stingy.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
Feel right.
Here's the thing about this situation. Like, I don't know, Brother Michael and B, if America has. Like, I'm trying to think about over these past couple of years, and Brother Michael, you certainly can give us some context of this. But over these past couple of years, it just doesn't seem like there has been a real effort for a better relationship between U.S. and Africa and African nations. Now, right. I could be wrong, but like even with this situation with the Ukraine war against Russia, the plight that African countries are feeling as a result of the food shortages, as a result of resources like oil and power and things like that, Like, I'm not seeing the U.S. kind of stepping up its support for those African countries enough to say, you know what, hey, we want y'all also to be at the table. I feel like Africa is still out there on an island by itself when it comes to international relations. Am I wrong in thinking this?
Well, there's been a change with the Trump administration. There's been a change between the Trump administration and the Biden administration on their approach to this. There was in one of the articles I was reading, it talked about how, let me see, which part was that? Oh, Secretary Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said he said that Washington would have to do things differently to help Africa with its infrastructure needs, and it was time to stop treating the continent as a subject of geopolitics and rather as a major player on its own. Now, there's also the Biden administration has been criticized by some as inattentive to Africa, a common complaint about U.S. foreign policy, but one that has rung louder since China deepened its political and economic roots on the continent. Okay, this is from the article from Reuters.com on this. So what this kind of feels like, it may not be the same thing. It may be the skeptic in me, but it feels like the Berlin Conference of 1884 all over again. Okay, where you had 14 European nations that carved up Africa into colonies because they wanted the natural resources of Africa, and the geographical boundaries that basically exist in the 54 African countries today largely came from the Berlin Conference, and they drew the geographical boundaries around the areas that had the natural resources that they wanted. So, as I said to Professor James Small before I came on, I said, to me, African nations, the African Union, they have to be leery of China, Russia, and the U.S. I don't think you can trust any of them. I don't think you can trust any of them because they all want your natural resources.
Brother, I mean, and I think, Brother Michael, you are absolutely on point. You are absolutely on point. And you know what? Africa has been dealing with this, I would say, this relationship challenge for years.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this is not brand new. And after president, I think I remember when President Obama talked, when he was in office and he talked about that trip. And correct me if I'm wrong, did he make a trip to Africa at one time during his 2-term presidency?
I don't remember. I remember something with Ghana. I can't remember if it
I thought he returned. I know he talked about going back home to where his father came
Kenya.
from.
Okay, Kenya.
You're right. But he never made an official trip, as far as I remember. Back to
I have to research that. I don't remember on that.
Okay. And so, to the point of what you just read, I mean, Africa has been neglected.
Right.
Africa has been neglected, and it's funny because I see a lot of our people on this side on this in America, we often talk about African trade. I saw one of my brothers here, from Baltimore, talking about trading with places like Gambia and Zimbabwe and Libya and all of that. I've talked to brothers like D. Chase who works intercontinentally with other folks, and I see that there is this push in Black America to reconnect us to Africa. Right. But I'm wondering, is it a futile attempt? If it really going to garner anything if the governments aren't on the same page? I mean, should we even be having those conversations as people, as citizens of this country, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as activists and organizers? Should we be talking about reconnecting with Africa if there is no institutionalized pathway to building new relationships with countries on the continent?
And then, do we want those pathways institutionalized? And so it's like, because isn't that what got us here to begin with? And so it's like, we keep on going in this circle of acceptance, And so it's like, to me, we romanticize our relationship with Africa grossly. You know, we and so that's the part, you know, that if we're gonna really have this conversation, you know, there is a reparations that comes from the West as well.
You said we romanticize it.
You know, we romanticize it, and we put all of and we put the responsibility of like this pathway, you know, on the other European nations, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, the pathway that we, the quote unquote Negro, you know, our pathway to Africa, you know, our pathway to trade, you know, needs to be established in a different way. In a different way, you know. Absolutely. And so it's like, I think we can all agree that, you know, institutionally speaking, it's probably not wise for the entire continent to join the UN. Right? That's not that is most likely not wise. You know,
the G20.
The G20.
They're already part of the UN. Some of them are already part of the UN.
My bad.
G20.
But brother Michael, to Javi's point about that romanticism of Africa, have we done that? I mean, as Black folks.
There's romanticization with Africa, because there's an overgeneralization of Africa, and we romanticize it like Africa did not have its problems before Arabs or Europeans invaded Africa. There were problems. Now there's more benefit to reclaiming African history and culture, but there is much more benefit to this, because African history and culture gives us a self-esteem, our self-development, our self-worth. It gives us a cultural paradigm to see reality through. It gives us our VIPs, our values, our interests, and our principles, as two of my teachers, Dr. Leonard Jeffries and Professor Jane Small, correctly teach us. And that cultural paradigm that influences your economic empowerment and your political empowerment. Okay, so during the transatlantic slave trade, we see that we were stripped of African history, culture, language, spiritual systems, our names, our family ties, our nationality, etc. This is why when I talk about repairing the damage of a legacy of 246 years of slavery and decades of Jim Crow segregation, you can't just do that with a check. You got to have comprehensive reparations, and we've largely been taught to hate ourselves. So we really have to study African history and realize that they had internal problems, they had internal wars, there was factionalism and things like this. But it still was better before Europeans and Arabs invaded Africa as well. Let's be clear, it was better before they invaded, and Arabs were involved in the enslavement of African people going back to 7th century AD, going back to about 653 AD. They were involved hundreds of years before the transatlantic slave trade started. So we have to look at the good and bad that existed in Africa, but then also take those teachings, take that history, take that culture, and adapt it to our needs today. Just because they did something a certain way 2,000 years ago does not necessarily mean it will benefit you today and is relevant also to your geography as well. Okay, so we have to. It wasn't perfect, Absolutely. But it's better than a lot of what we're doing now. So we have to make it better. When we claim this, when we claim that history and culture, we want to make it better and make it relevant to our condition today.
And I think, Brother Michael and B, that's the part that you got a whole generation of young Black folks who don't know the history, who aren't familiar with the struggle, who aren't familiar with the relationship. And I think that's the part, like making this whole thing relevant. Because if you're talking about a Black America-African union right now, it just seems like you're talking about you might as well, some people might as well talk about Wakanda. You know what I'm saying?
It's like
it just seems so
about a
far
Facebook
off.
group. Yeah, that's a Facebook group. You're talking about a Facebook group. I think I'm part of that.
Wakanda is powerful. Wakanda is a key Congo word that's in reference to family. Wakanda is a Native American term. It's Omaha, Ponca, and Sioux Indian, which means possesses secret powers. We can see one of the mistakes that, not saying you doing this, Brother Farajii, but one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is when they deal. There are three at least three essential things that great African civilizations had. They had their history and culture. They had an economic system. They had a political system. They had some type of spiritual system as well. It wasn't just culture. Right. They also had an economic system, whether it was bartering, whether it's based on gold, whether it's based on salt. So what we have to understand is that we can learn from the civilizations that Africa built, whether we're talking about the Timbuktu and the University of Sankore in the city of Timbuktu, whether we're talking about Mali, Ghana, Songhai, Ghana, whether we're talking about ancient Kemet, Nubia, Ta-Nehisi. We can learn from what we built, and the genius that built those civilizations still exists in us today. Okay, we just have to realize that we're borrowing from one of my teachers, Professor Kabahai Wapa Kamene. We're like whales in goldfish bowls. Our potential is so much greater than what we think it is. We don't really understand who we are. We're like whales in goldfish bowls.
And see, that's the part though, Brother Michael, that you have to get that over to the next generation. Even before young people, you got to get that over to older black folks, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like connecting the dots, helping people to understand. You always talk about the history. You always talking about understanding the lineage. You always talking about going back to the root. And that's the part that I think that we're in America. We are to some degree just like at a place where we're like, you know what? Now it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that part of my history when I'm trying to, still deal with this or still deal with that. You know what I mean?
Well, that history is directly related to what we're dealing with today.
And that's why we have these conversations, right?
Right.
Like
it's not separate.
No,
It's directly related.
Not at all.
Right.
And I think that's the point of why we have these conversations, because, the problems that Black folks in America has been suffering from are problems that's been around, but more importantly, are problems that we can actually solve if we have the will to do it.
Yeah, but those problems didn't always exist at the beginning of what became America.
No.
You see what I'm saying?
No,
racism did not. See, when we talk about August 20th, 1619, and those 20 and odd Africans on the White Lion pirate ship that came into, it was really Hampton, Virginia, not Jamestown. Codified slave laws didn't even exist in the 13 colonies.
Right.
They were put into a form of indentured servitude. The first colony to have codified slave laws is Massachusetts in 1641. Then it comes to Connecticut about 1650, Virginia about 1661. Okay, so the whole way this whole thing evolved historically is different than how we think it did. If you read the 6th edition of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., I just taught this in my class a couple weeks ago, page 40, he talks about the names that African people had in this country before they were called Negroes. In the early 1600s, they were called Moors, Blackamoors, Nagars, Negers, and Nagars, Negars. Before we were called Negroes in what would become the 13 colonies. He's talking about the names that we had in this land before, prior to Bacon's Rebellion, 1675 and 1676 in the colony of Virginia, and it's going to be after Bacon's Rebellion, right about 1681, that they introduced the term white widespread in the Virginia colony to break up an alliance between enslaved Africans, African indentured servants, poor white people, and white indentured servants, because they had united in Bacon's Rebellion because they realized they had a common oppressor. They were all being exploited on the tobacco plantations in Virginia. And in Bacon's Rebellion, they burned down the town of Jamestown, Virginia.
Wow.
This is in 1675, 1676. So when you go study the chronology of how all this stuff evolved, it's totally different than the way we think it did. Because early on in the early 1600s, who we call white people, they were calling them English or Englishmen and Christians. They largely weren't calling them white. Okay? That term is going to be introduced and adopted by the other colonies right about 1681 to break up the alliance, because, Dick Gregory used to say, if you can't pick up the phone and change the interest rate, you're not white. You're just perpetrating. Wow. You think you white. You just on the team to add numbers. You really ain't white. Okay. So that's why we have to understand this history.
Absolutely. Look, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. I'm going to share with you what Cherelle Griner, the wife of Brittney Griner, has to say as her wife has come back home, back in her arms, and their family is looking to heal from that 10-month ordeal. I'm going to share with you the touching message she had to say about that. And if we got a few more moments, let's share something for you for the culture in the name of our brother, Biggie Smalls. Stay with us. It's the culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. I wanted to share with you as we end this story. This is like the perfect ending for a story that we have been following for the past few months. And Brother Michael B. Fly, I mean, we all know about what happened with our sister Brittney Griner coming back home after a 10-month ordeal. Her back into the hands of her arms of her wife, who has been, I mean, advocating hard and strong. Well, her wife has finally, Brittney's wife finally put it out there on social media. She just wanted to share her thanks to all of those who supported her through this ordeal. Take a look at this post, folks. This is her post. She said, "Yesterday, my heart was made whole thanks to the collective efforts of many. I'm humbled by their hearts." She wrote this on Saturday. She said, "To care for another, a stranger to some, a friend to some, is humanity in its purest form. As BG and I start our journey to heal our minds, bodies, and spirits, I wanted to personally say thank you to some of the hands, seen and unseen, that helped make it possible for me to see my wife again. I appreciate each and every one of you. Let's continue to use our hands, voices, platforms, and resources to bring Paul and all Americans home. Talking to Paul Whelan, all families deserve to be whole." Let's take a look. I want to see if we can, Keenan and Ariel, if we can post that, show folks that IG post, because Cherelle Griner has thanked so many people. I mean, her post was long. She thanked, take a look at this, folks. This is the post that she made, Cherelle Griner. Let's scroll down. And she thanked, of course, President Biden, Congressman Greg Stanton, Sheila Jackson Lee, Colin Alfred, a host of people from Robin Roberts, Angela Rye, April Ryan, Joy Reid, Gail King, a lot of black folks. Man, when you look at it, you know, it's just a beautiful situation. Karen Finney, Sky Dickinson, and I mean, just a number of people, Tamika Mallory, Tracy Hughes. So many folks have been a part of bringing Brittney back home, or even more importantly, spreading the word and talking about the message. I mean, this has been a situation, 10 months, folks, 10 months that we've seen this. And this is all coming from the wife of Brittney Griner, Cherelle Griner. B, I'm going to start with you with this one. What can we say about this situation? I mean, it's a happy ending, but I think people are still trying to figure out the long-term impact of letting this guy, Victor Bout, who's considered to be the merchant of death, you know, kind of going back home. But with all that being said, it's a happy ending. Brittney Griner is back home.
This is true. Send his ass back to wherever. We got Brittney back, and then boom. You know, like I'm just, let's just wrap this up. Let's get ready for the biopics. You know, let's get ready for the press tour. You know, let's give her some time. Let's definitely make sure that she is being supported, you know, with her mental health, you know, coming like
that's the part.
You know, the decompression process,
that's
you know,
part.
from being incarcerated to all of a sudden being quote unquote free. Like that's a motherfucker, you know? And so it's like, so pray for your girl. Like that shit's real. And, you know, and most likely, you know, she's a different person now.
Oh, no doubt.
She's a different person. Is she going back to sports? Is she going in a new direction? You know, like this is the part, you know, that is for her to carve, you know? And so there's a part of us that want to know. But I think within us all, we know that it's time to, you know, back up off and let this woman heal.
And Brother Michael, I saw a piece that people said that Brittney Griner, you know, she may not go back into the WNBA.
Right.
I don't know if that's the case, but she might just need to take a season off if she decides to go. You know what I'm saying? Because this has been an ordeal, to say the least. But you know, when we look at, and I'm still kind of leery, and I'm still in my feelings about how the conversation went when people say, "Oh, it may not have been the best deal." You know, what's your take on that, Brother Michael?
Well, the reason why most of those people who said it may not have been the best deal never been involved in international hostage negotiations, but they wanted to opine on it anyway, like they have been, like they actually did. You have people. This was the deal that was on the table. Period. Russia holds the cards. The U.S. does not hold the cards. Russia holds the cards. This deal was struck a week ago, and the Biden-Harris administration were trying to get Paul Whelan out as well. Former Marine Paul Whelan. The Russians wanted a Russian spy that they said that was in U.S. custody. The U.S. is saying the Russian spy is not in U.S. custody. It's actually the Russian spy is actually in Germany's custody. Germany said no to the deal. So what do? Do you leave Brittney Griner there, or you take the deal that's on the table? A few months ago, when they got Trevor Reed back, okay, they wanted to get Brittney Griner, but her case was still going through the process based upon the way the Russian justice system or misjustice system works. They don't negotiate deals until after it has the whole case has been adjudicated. So they couldn't get Brittney Griner back. They wanted to get Paul Whelan in. The deal wasn't there. They got Trevor Reed. Now, for all the naysayers, including punk ass Kevin McCarthy, who is dying to be this new Speaker of the House of Representatives, and all these Republicans, one, Donald Trump did nothing. The 2 years that Whelan was in prison under the Trump administration, Donald Trump did nothing and did not to free Whelan, and he did not speak or tweet Whelan's name. There's a in-depth article from the independent.co.uk that did this analysis. Donald Trump, who ignored Paul Whelan for 2 years, says deal to return Brittney Griner to U.S. was quote unquote stupid. Secondly, if Joe Biden had listened to these dumbass Republicans and left Brittney Griner there, and Brittney Griner ended up dying in a Russian penal colony, then every last one of these traitorous Republicans, as well as Marjorie Taylor Greene, who just said that if she had helped organize the January 6th insurrection, would have succeeded, every last one of them would be saying that Joe Biden left behind a two-time Olympic gold medalist. So all of them could go to hell. They don't know what they're talking about. This was the deal that's on the table. You get this one, you come back and get the next deal.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Ming Lee, Natasha, Serge, you bring up a point that I think that is also kind of brewing among the among the culture in Black America. You say it's way too much misplaced aggression about Brittney being freed in the Black community. They want her to jump right into being an advocate. Give her time to get her mental health in order first.
Right. That's true. And on Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we spoke with Robin May, who's a licensed professional counselor. And Robin May focused on the type of, even though she hasn't examined Brittney Griner, but generally speaking, those in those type of conditions, she talked about the type of mental health treatment Brittney Griner would probably need, but as well as Cherelle Griner also, because Cherelle has been through something traumatic as well. Okay, so yeah, people need to give her time, give her space. Don't expect her to come out and just be an advocate right away. She needs to take all the time that she needs.
What would she advocate for, though, B? I mean, seriously, would she advocate for players not to go across the seas to play? I mean, what would she advocate for?
Better pay.
Better pay. Like, cannabis rules need to change within the system. You know, some sort of process. You know, like there's a lot of shit to advocate here, you know, but at the end of the day, it's like, God, like, we definitely have to let this woman breathe. You know what I'm saying? Like, she does not need to wave any kind of flag at this point, you know, like, I'm sure she is going through a lot of like double thoughts, you know what I'm saying? Like, what if I wasn't trying to, you know, pursue this on the low?
What do they call it? They call it, what that is? Isn't it like survivors?
Survivor's remorse.
Survivor's
remorse. Right.
It's a lot to unpack, you know, and for her wife, I know that, like, you know, the idea of the next morning and you want just a regular morning and a regular breakfast, you know, and like that is so not regular. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that moment is not regular. Coming home, like, is not warm and fuzzy when you are coming out of a situation like this, you know? And so it's real, you know, and I wish her well. I wish them well, you know, but I also admit, you know, that I am too nosy AF, and, you know, and I want to see things, you know, I would like to see things, but this is what, you know, I believe in the reality TV model, Farajii, you know what I'm saying? Like, I believe in this model.
You want to wake up with her the next morning on camera.
Ooh, you know, like, in one hand, I'm like, leave this woman alone. But then I would also love to just, you know, click the channel.
Hey man, look, do like Harry. Look, do like Harry and Meghan did. Put it together, a video diary, and then come out next year with a documentary.
You know, and so it's like, are they doing this already? Like, if they're doing this, you know, I think that kind of flies in the face of like of respecting mental health. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but like, but she needs to purge her story while she is here to tell it herself, you know? Gotcha. So it's like, God, it's so much, you know, I wish her well, and let us know what we could do.
Give her time. All right, let me get one final thing, and then Brother Michael want to get you talking about the work you're doing. Final piece, y'all. Looking at what's happening in New York. If you're in New York, you probably see something very special along the Brooklyn Bridge. Take a look at this, folks. A new solar-powered statue of hip-hop legend Christopher Wallace, better known as Notorious Biggie. Right there, Sky's the Limit sculpture pays homage to hip-hop legend Biggie Smalls. It was a piece that was done by an artist named Sherwin the Artist. Sherwin the Artist put this out there on his Instagram. Take a look at this. We got can we play his Instagram, his IG video very quickly, Keenan? Let's take a look. It's a mixed
I got to talk. I got to tell what I feel. I got to talk about my life as I see it. Biggie.
There it is, folks. Biggie. The 9-foot sculpture stands at the entrance of the Brooklyn Bridge and pays homage to the Bed-Stuy native whose music left an indelible mark on hip-hop. It's a mixed media work art of made of bronze, stainless steel, and resin. It features solar-powered speakers on either side that play some of Biggie's greatest hits. He wears a crown, holds a microphone, and there's also a colorful design, which is an ode to the colorful Coogee sweaters that he wore. Again, Sherwin, the artist, is the artist behind the Sky's the Limit sculpture, as he paid homage to Brooklyn's very own Biggie Smalls. How about that for the culture, Brother Michael? How you like that, Scott?
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, you know, I think this is something important, and people need to study Biggie. People need to study the whole era of hip hop. We need to study the origin of hip hop as well. Study the storytelling, which really goes back to the griots in Africa, and understand how we used hip hop as a method to elevate the conscious level of especially African-American youth. When at a time when music programs and schools were being cut, we took the turntable and turned it into a musical instrument. We started beatboxing because we couldn't learn how to read music. We couldn't play musical instruments. So we see all that it represented in hip hop, and the 4 elements of hip hop: DJing, graffiti, MCing, and breakdancing. And the 5th element of hip hop was knowledge. Because there was knowledge in hip hop, whether we talk about KRS-One, the Poor Righteous Teachers, Brand Nubians, when we talk about the X-Clan, there was knowledge in hip hop that made us want to do better, that taught us that we want to learn our history and culture, things like this. So we have to understand how Notorious B.I.G. fits into that whole legacy of the great MCs as well, and into hip hop culture. So I think this is something very important.
That is dope. That is dope and great for the culture. Brother Michael, B-Fly, I appreciate you, sis. Thank you so much for checking in as always. Mm-hmm. And God willing, we'll be reconnecting with you very
and check out my
soon.
website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. I'm teaching my online history classes this week. On Wednesdays, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, slow down. On Wednesdays, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Keep going, go down. We're going to get into some of the history of the Moors going into 711 AD into the Iberian Peninsula. We'll deal with also the expansion of the transatlantic slave trade. Christopher Columbus will deal with what the Moors introduced into Europe as well. And all this came back to kick us in the behind also, okay? Everything we taught Europeans came back to kick us in the behind. So check out our online classes. They're on sale $60, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. And we also have a special bundle pack of 15 of my lectures in digital download format on sale for a limited time, only $50. It's a $150 value. That's theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. And that's our Tuesday night class, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks, Farajii.
You're welcome, dear brother. Brother Michael, check him out at africanhistorynetwork.com. Thank y'all both for being so good for the culture, and I truly, truly appreciate your time this afternoon. Folks, make sure y'all stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Make sure y'all continue to show your support for Black Star Network. Go to our website at blackstarnetwork.com, and you can continue to show support for us financially. You can show support for us by retweeting and resharing the information. But again, we need your support. Go to blackstarnetwork.com. I want to thank my dynamic team, Joel, Keenan, Ariel. I want to thank my control room, and I want to thank each and every one of you. Make sure y'all follow me on social media at The Real Farajii on IG and Farajii on Twitter. I love to connect with you. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here on the Black Star Network. Thank you also to my very, very special guest, Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, and to my other great culture crew member, Nira Muhammad, and we'll certainly bring them back on very, very soon. Talk to y'all soon, family. Have a great afternoon and evening. Peace.